Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to us on Season 3 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems. Now, when was the last time you checked out the Kits Cross-Channel Marketing Suite? This is your full-on marketing toolset starting with Loop CRM to help keep you organized. The most personalized and effective direct mail newsletters delivering response rates of over 35%. Email newsletters, websites, social media content. Our super easy 3-click landing pages complete with automated action plans. And so much more to help you manage your business, generate more leads and referrals, and build that mindshare to drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. And as you know, we are on a push to get to 100 reviews on iTunes, and so I'd like to ask you, if you haven't yet, please take 2 minutes, go to iTunes, rate the show, and leave a review. And we've added an extra incentive for you. For everyone who leaves a review, you are being entered into a draw to win 1 year of free group coaching, valued at over $500. It really is that easy. And let me say, thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 155. He began his career as a RE/MAX sales associate at an independently owned and operated brokerage in 2010 before joining sub-master franchise RE/MAX Integra as a franchise sales consultant in 2014. He then served as Chief Strategy Officer and Executive Vice President of RE/MAX Integra and was responsible for the day-to-day operations as well as developing and overseeing business strategies. As a graduate of Carleton University in Ontario and a third-generation RE/MAX leader, he maintains a deep knowledge of real estate, markets, and industry trends. He joined RE/MAX LLC in his current role in July 2021 and oversees regional operations for the eastern provinces of the RE/MAX Canada region, which includes Ontario, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Labrador, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. And he is in constant contact with the RE/MAX network around the world. This week on the show, I am joined by Senior Vice President at RE/MAX Canada, Christopher Alexander. Christopher, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Hi, David. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hey, very excited to have you here. I appreciate you. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And I want to say congratulations. I noticed the recent post there about RE/MAX being voted the #1 most trusted real estate brand or real estate agents in Canada. So a big congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I got to ask you, what do you guys credit to achieving that recognition right there?
Well, there's a number of factors. I mean, BrandSpark did the survey, and we recently won it in the U.S. as well. And BrandSpark, they look at a number of factors. I mean, I got them right here. It's quality, fair prices, recommendations, innovation, customer support, values, transparency, heritage. And, you know, we according to them, we ticked all the boxes. And so this is the first time that we've actually paid to have the rights to advertise this. And it's an award we've won this will be the 4th year that we've won it. So, I mean, it's a testament to our agents and the hard work and professionalism that they put in, and the strength of our brand across the country is really what I think caused the continual success in their surveys.
Well, I would say to you that I don't think it's so much of a surprise to many people to see that you guys have won that. You guys do a phenomenal job out there. And I mean, when we talk about building mindshare, I've got actually funny stories about doing stage presentations. And I'm maybe not even necessarily in a room with RE/MAX, but then all of a sudden, when you talk about real estate, everybody just says RE/MAX, which is an amazing, accolade there in terms of just what people think about when it comes to that. Now, as you mentioned that and sort of some of the bogeys that you got to hit to get that reward, talk to us about trust. How important is it to build trust with others? And even more specifically, how do we go about doing this? Because I think that this is when we talk about professionalism, when we look at the industry, not a lot of people from a sales perspective necessarily always look at that direction of having to build trust. More they're thinking transactional. But how do you get to that point of actually building so much trust with people?
Well, just take it back a little bit. trust is really the fundamental. It's the foundation of any transaction in any industry, at least in my opinion. It's very difficult for people to do business with people they don't trust, unless they just don't care about the outcome. But in our business and other industries, if you need that foundation to build, to kind of foster, the pillars of doing a deal. And in real estate, it's hugely important, because we're on the residential side, we're usually facilitating the biggest financial transaction that people make in their lifetime. And so, and that's a cliche, people use it all the time, but it's true.
It is.
And people need to know that whoever they're working with has their best interests at heart. And, you talk about how do you build trust? I mean, to me, it's simple. It's actually kind of simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. I mean, do what you say you're going to do. Deliver on time. Don't lie to people. If you don't know the answer to something, say, I don't know. It doesn't have to be very complicated, but, it is something that any salesperson or organization, brand, business should be working towards. And I know a lot of companies, or most companies, do, because, as I said, that's the foundation of pretty much any transaction across the board.
Yeah, no, I think that it's funny the way you say, do as you say. We actually just put that up. I put that up today on my Facebook to both my private community as well as our business page, and in similar type of messages, because that's the idea. You can't buy it. You've got to earn it. And it really comes through your actions and the things that you do out there. It's not something that you look and go, hey, I'm trustworthy. So it is something that's got to be built on now. And I believe too that, part of the trust that you guys have, as a company have built is due in large part to the fact that, RE/MAX as a brand has, as I mentioned a moment ago, has built the most mindshare worldwide when it comes to real estate. And I think that's a great thing. Now, that being said, should agents be leaving it up to the big brand to do the big advertising push, or should they be continuing to develop their own individual brands and, grow their real estate business as an actual business, right? Because we've seen a lot of folks that go out and either don't do much at all, or they will go and develop their own brand that is so far off what the big brand is doing. So should people be leaving it to the brand? Should they be doing it on their own? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm obviously a brand guy. And the interesting thing about people doing it on their own, it's really a Southern Ontario phenomenon.
Oh, right.
And it doesn't exist anywhere near to the degree that it does in Southern Ontario.
Now, are you speaking specifically, sorry, Chris, are you speaking specifically like the brand colors and the logos and that type of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And people, have, designing their own signs that you can't even tell what company they're with. That is a GTA Southern Ontario phenomenon. And we have it in our brand. Other companies have the same issues. But I find it so interesting because, like I said, it's Southern Ontario phenomenon. If you go to the US even, it's not nowhere near the degree of people trying to personalize themselves when they're associated with a national organization. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of agents that push the envelope and try to have their own identity because they want to stand out. But it's not to the degree that it happens in Southern Ontario. And I just find it very interesting because of that. I mean, Western Canada brands are on brand, like not just RE/MAX. All brands, you're using the colors of the sign. You might have your logo on your sale line, but brands are on brand. Quebec is very stringent. I mean, that the industry in Quebec's different stage than we are in the rest of the country, but the brands there are, all the agents are very similar for sale signs. And I think what agents miss, and it does kind of feel like the pendulum's starting to swing a little bit back the other way, is that yes, you want to stand out and you want your customers to know that, you're a big agent and you're successful, but consumers don't think about it the way realtors do, and us in the business. Like, we're so in the weeds. Consumers don't think about it the same way we do. Like, if you consider driving down a neighborhood and every single for sale sign is different, you're probably thinking, first of all, you probably don't even notice half of them. And second of all, if you do notice one, you're sitting there like, is that real estate? It is real estate. What company is that? And you have to stop and think about it. Whereas when you have a brand that people know, like Remax, we're a good example. You drive by and you're like, oh, that's a real estate. That house is for sale. There's less thought process that goes into making that connection with the consumer, that you have a product you're selling. And I think a lot of agents are missing out on that residual, subliminal, subconscious connection with, this is a home that's for sale. So park that for a second. If you're an agent and you have built brand equity in a neighborhood and you've got, your own market share in a specific farm area of a subdivision or a neighborhood, you can argue that, yes, everybody, they see, the Chris Alexander team, for example, they know it's real estate because they're in that neighborhood and they see it. But where people also don't miss, like, and especially in the last 18 months since COVID started, so much more transient nature of consumerism right now in real estate. People are moving all over the country to find where they want to live. So yes, you might dominate your neighborhood, and everybody in that local neighborhood knows that the David Greenspan team is a real estate agent. But most people outside of that neighborhood, it's going to take them some time to make that connection that David is in real estate. He's selling homes. So I think in today's world where everything is about instant gratification, you can't have things fast enough. I just don't understand why agents want their customers and potential customers and the consumer population to take any more time than they have to decipher that David, that's a for sale sign for a house, and David's in real estate. So that's my
listen, I couldn't agree with you more. This is something I've been preaching for years. I think I have a sense of where this whole fad started. And this was probably 20 years ago in this industry, through the different brandings and the options that people had from, folks that were saying, oh, you got to go do. But I continue to say this to anybody that's out there. There is nowhere, you could go anywhere in this world and wear that balloon on your lapel and people know exactly what you do for a living. The minute you change up those colors, the minute you change up and you add another logo and you make that, your logo, David Greenspan, Chris Alexander, the main thing, and the colors, I got to think now as a consumer. I love what you said there. I've got to think, and I'm probably not going to take the time to think. But the minute I do see that red, white, blue, that Remax, right away I say real estate, right away I say trust, right away I say reputable. Here, I'm going to try this with you right now. When I say running shoes, what's the first name you think of? First company.
Nike.
When I say fast food, what's the first company you think of?
McDonald's.
When I say soda pop, what's the first company you think of?
Coca-Cola.
When I say real estate, what is the first company you think of?
Remax.
Now, here's the best part. Of course, you're going to say Remax. But again, when I do that, I've done that on stages in front of a lot of people many, many times. I say real estate. Many people will yell at Remax, even if it's not a Remax conference, right? Or they're not even with Remax. That's people's and consumers' mindset when it comes to real estate and the brand of Remax. So I echo what you're saying. It doesn't make sense to me about the change. People do it, but it is a good encouragement to everybody who is thinking that way and who does that. You got to come back to the way the consumer's thinking and understand where the importance is of it. Now,
well, it's such a washout. And I mentioned, it's not just a Remax challenge. Like all the other brands have it. The people that are doing it, in my opinion, the right way are the independents, the smaller independents, because they understand that we're better together and we have better consumer perception when all of our for sale signs look the same. So I totally appreciate the want for agents to stand out, especially when you have a ton of agents from the same brand that you're, friendly competitors with. So you're thinking to yourself, why, how do I make myself stand out? There's better ways to do it than changing up a for sale sign that has, had more than 40 years and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in making sure consumers know that for sale sign is associated with real estate. So again, though, I go back to it being a Southern Ontario phenomenon. It's, it's crept into some markets like Ottawa and Kingston a little bit, but you go into towns outside of the GTA and they understand brands better than us big city folk do. And I find it so fascinating.
Well, look, a brand, we've always said it as marketers and strategists, that a brand is much more than a set of colors and a logo, right? This is about that experience, that perception, that trust factor. It's the overall of everything that's out there, again, beyond just the colors. And so I think that there's a lot of weight to be held. And yes, there's a lot of great brands out there, definitely in the real estate industry. There's a lot of weight to be held to be carrying the flag that looks consistent. And when it is about differentiating, my advice to anybody would be, again, experience, relationship, because that's what this business comes down to. And as you said, biggest purchase of somebody's life. Yeah. Integra, LLC. Sort of leading up to today and speaking with folks, and just people have asked the question, and I think there's a lot of positives come. I figured I'd maybe take a moment to just ask the question, say, like, in terms of benefits to the realtor, and just being able to use this platform for a second to share that out. Maybe some of the reasoning for it, or even some of the benefits to the agents that are coming out of it that maybe people don't know about. Anything that we can share about that today?
Yeah, sure. Actually, there's just in the last hour, Real Estate Magazine just released an article about the end of an era. That was the title on it, but it's really the beginning of something incredible. And just to give you some of the history in Canada, so Remax Integra, or Ontario Atlantic, was founded by Frank Pulsler and Walter Schneider in 1980, and Bob Charot owned Remax of Western Canada independently as well. And it's debatable as to who opened first. You ask Frank and Walter, they say they did it. You ask Bob when he was around, he would say he did it. And then, of course, Quebec is privately owned as well. And so you had three independent Remax regions that were extremely successful on their own and independently. We always worked very closely with Western Canada and Quebec. I'll say it, Western Canada, we had more collaboration with, and that's just because Francophone, Anglophone. But, Quebec, we were always, having regular meetings with. Now with, Remax LLC acquiring, Remax Holdings acquiring Remax Integra in Canada and the US, it has opened the door to basically, or essentially, a national offering that we haven't really had before in Canada. And as far as some of the benefits that the agents are going to start to see, we're going to have an aligned brand strategy across the country. And that will include an aligned technology platform, different recruiting campaign, and targeted advertising to consumers. Whereas before you had three different regions doing three different things. Despite our collaboration efforts, we were still very separate. We had different tools and different resources. Now it's all going to be very similar, with the exception of Quebec in some instances because of the language barrier. And as I mentioned earlier, that the industry is just at a different stage. Mm-hmm. So as far as I'm concerned, this is arguably the most exciting time in our history because, for example, our marketing fund is, roughly $26 million in change. And nobody else in Canada has a marketing fund that I'm aware of. And, we it just became so much bigger. And so that's going to allow us to have a lot more buying power. It's going to allow us to make more strategic investments in technology. And I'm really, really excited because things are more and more global, and we just have resources that we hadn't had the advantage of in the past. And so, for example, Remax Integra in the US and Canada was about 100 employees, and Remax LLC is just over 1,000.
Wow, big time difference.
It's a much larger organization. I mean, we're in over 130 countries and territories, close to 145,000 agents around the world. And, we're finally starting to harness the power as a global network, and being able to launch a lot of those initiatives and programs is really, really exciting.
Well, it's very similar to what we were just talking about that brand consistency. There's now this consistent collaborative effort across the country to, again, take that to the next level. And I mean, I'll continue to say it, and it's not because you're here, but you guys, when it comes to the real estate branding game, you guys are the kings at that, always have been. I mean, you look at it, as an athlete and as a sports guy, we see it all over the place. Very, very recognizable, but there's a lot of power to that, right? Now, as we look at, looking at sort of back and looking ahead, when it comes to the past 21 months or so, and we were touching on this briefly before we got on air, but what do we learn about, like as an industry, what do we learn about the market? What do we learn about consumers overall? And maybe that takeaway that we can leverage to grow our businesses as agents. And maybe in that same breath of like, what did we learn? Do we think that the markets are going to keep up at this pace?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there, but
we could go surface level on something.
Yeah. I think, what we learned really quickly is that technology is never going to replace the realtor.
Agreed.
And we learned that like out of the gate, pretty much. We were very fortunate. There's a lot of silver linings in COVID that, real estate's been the benefactor of, but mainly, we're very fortunate that the timing of COVID couldn't have been better in a lot of ways for real estate, because we already had the tools and technology at our disposal to facilitate transactions without seeing people face to face if we had to. We already had that. We had access to Zoom and FaceTime, Dot Loop and DocuSign and paperless, and a lot of brokerages were on top of that in a big way. Most weren't. A lot of them had those tools, but never really used them. And COVID forced everybody to use these tools. Like, they didn't have a choice. Otherwise, they weren't going to have any business. And so what to me was really apparent, what I really learned is that technology is a tool, and you can use them to make your life easier. You can use technology for a lot of things, but it's not going to replace agents, for one, and it's not going to determine your level of success. And hindsight's 2020, but it's so painstakingly obvious. You can have the best tech, whether you're in real estate or not. You have the best technology. If you don't know how to use it, or you don't use it at all, or you're not putting the work in that technology will enhance, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You need to, as an agent especially, you need to be doing the fundamental work to build your business to have success. And technology can really complement that. It's really made the lives of agents easier. And, so that was a big learning for me, is that technology is really a tool. It's not going to replace us. And unless you're using those tools the way they should be used, you can take them or leave them, because it's not going to make or break your success. Now, there's a few caveats there, like consumers that work with agents that use technology effectively start to get aligned with that experience, and they start to kind of demand it in a lot of ways. So, for example, let's say you're used to buying a home with a really tech savvy agent, everything's paperless, and that's just how you're used to doing transactions in real estate. And then you buy a second home in a different market, say it's a cottage, and your agent's still using paper. You're probably going to be turned off by that experience because you're like, this is, kind of the Stone Ages, like get with the program here. So, and as I said, there's some caveats to that. Like you've got to be providing the experience that consumers are expecting in today's world. But again, it's just not going to replace us or make or break our success. So that's one part. What was the other part of the question besides?
You know what? I think I might have jumped ahead on myself even to say about, the market keeping going at this pace. But before we even get there for a sec, I want to play off the technology thing for a sec, because a couple of things that we noticed over this time. One was, this thought of, are we going back into the office? Are we going back into the bricks and mortar? And we saw companies come out and sort of, have this little bit of maybe a fad, I might call it, a moment in time where people thought that maybe, going digital and technology is going to be the be all and end all of this business. And I would agree with you on one front from the fact that, the tech is not going to replace the agent. And I also believe that the agents need to recognize that and understand, where does the technology fit into my business? But much the same too, I would say that moment in time that people had, I think many people have actually realized, like, whoa, we are getting back to normal. This is great. I got to get back out there with people. This business is not done specifically or 100% online. This done as a belly to belly business. You got to be able to handshake. You got to be able to go see people. You got to be able to go into the office and get the support that you require. Those were some of the big things that we saw from tech, right? And that difference of, we can leverage it, Zooms, getting on camera. Yeah, we had it all before, but this has amplified it. This has forced us into it. So I agree with you completely on that, right? It's not going to replace us. And there were some good learnings from it. So you got to look and say, okay, what am I doing to bring this into my business? But again, understand it's not going to be the be all and end all of my business. And really, I was going to ask you too, then, like, as we look ahead on that and talking technology, so we kind of look at like the next 12 months going. And maybe in the same breath, I would ask you, did you happen to see Zuckerberg's release for Meta? Did you see that video that he sent out?
I didn't watch it. I read a lot about it, but I didn't watch it.
Essentially, what I took from it was like this virtual way. I mean, the way I'm seeing what he's building there. And again, anybody can argue this. Nobody's seen it yet, so nobody really knows. But what he talked about, and based on the power that this guy has, you might look and argue the fact that, like, if he says he's going to build it, he's probably going to build it. And in my mind, it looks like it's going to take the Facebooks and the Instagrams and stuff and make those look like they're like a Walkman in a Spotify type of world. It's just going to be very antiquated type of platforms that we're currently on now. So as we look ahead, though, over the next 12 months, kind of playing off of like what his announcement was and where the social platforms are going and the digital stuff, is there anything that we're seeing that, or you're hearing about trending wise from a technology perspective, that people should keep their ears and eyes open for?
I think lead conversions are probably going to get better when you're generating online leads. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a way to enhance that experience for both the consumer and the agents. I think that I'm hearing rumblings of different tech that's going to allow people to cipher through online leads before they even get to the agent. And so as a consumer, that's great because, most online leads, you're starting the funnel a year out. You're not going to be ready to make a decision for a year. And so
right.
you put out that first line in the water and you get 5 agents calling you, every day for 6 months. It's probably not the best, not the best experience for the consumer. Mm-hmm. And then from the agent side, it's like, I'm focused on building my business, and the nurturing part of that first 6 months until you can really get some rapport built, it takes a lot of time. And obviously there's a lot of agents that have it down to a science and they make it work. So I think that's going to improve dramatically. But there's also technology out that, is helping agents mine their sphere of influence, which is great because you're working with people that you already know. And so, if you can figure out when your people in your database are getting in that buying and selling decision mode without them even realizing it or them reaching out to you, that's great. I mean, we have some technology in the US that we're trying to bring to Canada. There's some specific Canadian privacy law hurdles that we're trying to get around, but it'll tell you when your client is online looking at kitchen renovation, information.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, David was online last night at 10:30 and he looked at these 5 kitchen websites. He might be thinking about making a move, because we know when people think about renovating, they also would consider moving. So those kinds of things, I think, are going to continue to make it easier for both consumers and agents. But yeah, I think over the next 12 months, I think we're going to see a lot of things shake out on just the industry wise. I think people are going to start returning to the office. People are also going to stay home. The business world in general is the big buzzword is hybrid model.
Yep.
And we're already seeing it in our network where you have some brokerages or some franchisees that are bursting at the seams and they need more space. They don't have enough offices. You have others that had thousands of square feet available pre-pandemic, and now they're cutting their offices in half because their people don't want to come into the office. So it's really interesting, but I think that's all going to shake out over the next 12 to 18 months, and we will be in what is considered the new normal officially. So I think there's still a lot to be shaken out. What I've really seen and noticed in the last 4, 5, 6 months is that we're human and we want to be with other humans, and so getting people together in person, as long as it's legal, of course, for our Canadian listeners, is going to be really important. Like, I don't care what organization you're in, you want to get in front of your people. People are missing it. They're wanting it. The few events that we've done face to face, it's just incredible the connection that you feel again. We recently had a broker owner meeting for Remax Canada a few weeks ago, and I'm seeing all these people consistently over screens. So, you're caught up on everything that's going on in their lives, but then you see everybody in the same room. It's magical. And the other thing is you discover things about people when you see them face to face that you just don't over a screen. There's still, some inhibition behind the screen when you're talking to people. It's amazing some of the things that we've found out about our franchisees or our agents when these are people that we're talking to consistently over Zoom, but we went and saw them face to face, and we found out one person was getting married, didn't know that. They've been engaged, didn't know it. Unfortunately, another man's wife has stage 4 cancer, and talking to that person consistently for the last 18 months. This has been going on in his life for the last year, and we didn't know. And it wasn't until one of our franchise development reps went to meet with this gentleman that he told him that, my wife's unfortunately going to pass away in sometime in the next few months. So that human connection, that face-to-face, belly-to-belly, I think is going to come back in a huge way, more than any technology or anything. I think people are going to just congregate as much as they possibly can. Personally, I'm really excited about that.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more there. I've been saying this for years. I mean, we've got our kits business, which, we help everybody really work their database. And I've been saying this to people for years, especially going to the conference and listening to, guys like myself who get up there and talk about marketing trends and strategies and everything else. And we talk about online lead generation. We talk about chatbots, and we talk about, lead conversion. And I think that even we as an industry have almost confused this thing of lead generation to the fact that it's simply online, but that's not the case. You can generate leads from multitude of channels, including the belly to belly, including getting out there with people. And I mean, look, I guess I should ask the question maybe instead of making the statement, but where do you believe that most agents are getting their business from? Would we say it's from the people on their list, the people that they know, like, and trust, or would it be from that group of total random strangers?
I have a feeling you have similar data, David, but it's remarkable. So I'm going to give you a long answer here because I think it's important.
Yep.
So in North America last year, there was roughly 6-7 million leads generated, roughly. It's typically about 5, but real estate was such a huge topic for everybody that it elevated a bit in 2020 and 21. So you had about, between 5 and 7 million leads generated every year. There's about 5.25 million transactions. It's more than 80% of business still comes from database, repeat referral.
Thank you, sir.
So, it's remarkable, and I don't want to take away anything because, Mark, we talked about marketing and branding earlier, and there's a lot of agents that spend a ton of money on that, and it works really, really well. It's probably arguably the best way to build awareness is to advertise, whether it's online or outdoor or however it is. But, once you build that sphere and you mine it and you pay attention and work it, it's the best source of business because you're just constantly, rolling it, and it doesn't cost you a lot of money either to, work your database and be successful with it.
Look, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, we're telling people all the time, 70 to 90% of an agent's business is definitely coming from the contact list. And even when we talk about getting leads, be it online, be it anywhere else, the goal technically would be to take them from that group number 2, strangers, move them into group number 1, people we know, and start to really stay in touch and do the follow-ups and be consistent with that group. Because the more you do that, the more opportunity you're going to have in this business. So
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I think what I've experienced is a lot of agents have challenge with, and Canadian agents. It's funny, Canadians are especially conscious of this, but they don't want to bother people. I hear that a lot. I'm sure you do too, David. Is that I'd love to reach out to my best friend's cousin or my best friend's mom, but I don't want to bother her. I don't want her to think of bothering her. So that I think is a psyche thing that we just need to get over because we're providing a service. We're trying to help people. And are you going to bother somebody once in a while because it's a bad time? Sure. But if that's going to get in your way, it's unlikely you're going to be successful in the business because you have to have some level of shameless promotion that you're comfortable with to, reap the benefits of cultivating a database.
Well, much the same too. If you're staying in touch with that database the right way and you're building relationships with people and not every interaction you have with them is about, hey, did you want to sell your house yet? If that's not the convo, but instead it's checking in to see how people are doing. It's talking about, I love my Maple Leafs, having a conversation about hockey or whatever it be. When you do that with people and you're authentic and genuine about the conversation that you're having, you can open up any door, have any conversation. You never need to go into your business. People know what you do. They will come to you if they like you. And right back to where we started today, they'll come to you if they trust you. And there's the idea of working the database. And there's the idea of constantly that whole thing of bothering people. Again, if you got a relationship with somebody, you're not bothering them. They're not going to look at it as a bother. But this comes back to consistency and staying in touch with people. And so okay. So what can agents be doing now to be, based on the face of technology and the fact that we've seen, just again, people going online. We know there's many people that don't want to get on video. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that of to anybody leverage video. But much the same, what can agents be doing to remain relevant in the face of all this tech?
Well, you have to make sure that you're providing the experience that consumers expect. So, and that's the only way you can always stay relevant is understand, okay, this is talks about a lot. But if I show up with a stack of paper at a listing appointment, chances are, if I'm in competition, most of the agents are coming with an iPad or some beautiful brochures that are going to wow the customer. So if you're not up to date on what consumers expect, that's going to be a hindrance to your business. And I think, it's oftentimes we live in a bubble in this industry, but you just got to think of it from your own perspective. I always talk about Amazon. They really changed the psyche of consumers when you would wake up on a Saturday morning and oh no, I'm out of toilet paper or paper towel, you go on Prime and it's there by 3:00 in the afternoon. That's changed how people think. And we have to really think about that as realtors, that what is my consumer going to expect? What was the best experience I've had buying a product in the last 6 months? Think about it that way. And that, you'll always be on top of it. If you're constantly thinking about what other companies and other industries are delivering an experience that is awesome, that was mindless, more and more people hate when they have to think about things. So
isn't that crazy?
It's true. We've become so lazy because of all this technology. Yeah. So if you're feeling it as an agent, your customers certainly are. So think about, how can I make the process more efficient? How can I make it less complicated? Don't forget about the emotional part of the sale, especially in residential real estate. It's so emotional. Even for myself and my wife, last time we bought a home, the home before that we missed out on was multiple offers. She was devastated for like 6 weeks. Couldn't get her out of we'll find another one, honey. It's not the only house in Toronto. But you can't forget about that either as an agent, is all these factors. And just as long as you're consistent in what's the best experience out there as a consumer and trying to apply that to your business as an agent, you will be successful in having a seamless transaction. So there was another part of your question that you asked.
Yeah, no. You know what? I mean, it's all feeding into one another. Let's say this then. Okay, because the idea was to remain relevant, right? And the idea is to be out there and really create that experience and that consistency in the communication. So if we said this then, if you were stepping back into residential sales, and we're just going hypothetical for a moment here, right? Because again, I take it that, and it's no doubt that you understand the landscape of this industry, you understand the trends of this industry. You understand where business truly comes from in this industry. Even though we have all this access to technology, it really still is truly a people business. So if you were stepping back into residential sales, knowing what you know, what would you do to build up your brand to sort of achieve that success? Like maybe what marketing channels would you be using to build that mind share? Where would you really start? What kind of efficiencies might you actually put into your business? And this is more probably geared towards the marketing side of that question of, where would you begin?
It's funny. I thought about that oftentimes.
Are you thinking about getting back into home?
No, but I sold real estate for about 5 years, and I was successful. I wasn't crazy. I think my best year ever, I did almost 40 deals, including leases. So I never did anything too crazy, but the first couple of years were tough. And so think about it. What would I do if I went back into selling? And I would probably invest a ton into marketing. It would probably be outdoor and a mix of outdoor, online, and farming. And I would be working my database without shame. I wouldn't be afraid, I don't think anymore, to call somebody up and say, "Hey, it's Chris. Just letting you know, I've gotten back into real estate sales. Who do you know that's thinking about buying or selling in the next 2 to 3 months?" "Oh, gee, Chris, I can't really think of anybody." "That's cool. Do you mind if I check in with you again in a few weeks or in a couple of months just to see if you know anybody?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." "Okay, great, thanks. And if you're interested, I'll send you some information from time to time on what the market's doing." So, I've thought about that and what our best agents do in our network, and I'm sure it's the same in others, is they seem to do a mix of everything. So they're online lead generating, they're spending a ton on outdoor marketing, they're farming, and they're working a database. And they do it all together. If you're just starting out in this business, find one, but be consistent in it and understand how to manage your finances, because you've got to really think, you said it earlier, you've got to think of it as a business. Otherwise, two things will happen. you'll be in consistent debt, or you just won't be successful. So you've got to think, okay, I'm going to invest at least 20% of all my commissions for the foreseeable future into marketing. I'm going to save 20% of all my commissions for a rainy day or what have you, or RSPs. I'm going to take my tax up. Don't forget that one. It's remarkable how many people forget to save for taxes. Yep. And the tax man will get you. So be careful. So, I think I would make investments that I knew I could be consistent in, and they would probably be, 3 forms of marketing and really work the database.
I love that answer. This is something that, I believe, we're part of the Coach's Corner with Remax there. We're working with a ton of the offices and the brokerages and doing the training. And that's one thing that, and everybody that takes my stuff, takes my training, knows that is near and dear to me when we talk about budgeting. Hey, Dave, how much? Well, what should I spend? Well, what's your budget? Well, I don't know. It depends if it works. No, it doesn't. Because I will tell you, there's a lot of things that'll work. You may not be able to afford them. So let's go through and figure out your budget. And I tell most people, just, everybody and anybody, the folks that have been in the business a long time, you want to have an exit strategy, you need a book of business. The folks that just get into the business, hey, before you brush your teeth tonight, build a contact list. To me, that's the lowest hanging fruit. Go after those people, know your budget.
Well, the other thing is you want hire a coach too.
That's what I'm working with my coaching clients on. It's exactly that.
Yeah. Hire a coach. Even if just to have somebody to keep you accountable to doing the things you say you're going to do is huge.
Yep.
And I've worked with a lot of different coaches. I work with a couple right now. They're for different things. And would I be lost without them? No. But would I be as effective in my role? Probably not. Actually, I can guarantee that. And that's because, one of my coaches, it's all about accountability. So I say to him, I've got these 3 things to accomplish by the next time that we talk. And if it's the night before and I haven't accomplished 1 or 2 of those things, I'm like, oh crap, I better get to work on this because I don't want to face this guy tomorrow and tell him I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So it's just another layer of forcing you to do the things you need to be doing. But let's face it, as humans can be very lazy at times. So just adding that extra layer could really, really help.
You know what? We know that like yourself, top business people, top entrepreneurs, top musicians, top artists, top athletes, they all work with a coach. Remember, we know John Montgomery hosted the Canadian, the Amazing Race. And, he won a gold medal in Vancouver a few years back. Even chatting with him, and he's been on the show and he's a buddy of mine now. I asked him too. I said, look, you've won a gold medal, literally top of the top. You still got a coach? He goes, absolutely. Why wouldn't you? So I agree with that. And I think that, even back to the marketing side of things, it's that idea of going, your contact list is going to be the bread and butter. Once you got enough dollars in there, we can go bigger and wider, but it's got to be strategic. And I love what you brought up there about outdoor, online, because everything's got to support one another. And that's the biggest key to, a really successful marketing campaign out there, which again, we've seen Remax do in a number of different facets, right? Now, speaking of that, for you yourself, what are you specifically focused on a day-to-day, just in a brief moment there for, in terms of your role with Remax?
So my role is really to drive the business forward. And so, I work with Alton Ash, who's the executive VP in Western Canada. And we're really focused on driving the business forward and growing, helping our franchisees become more profitable, helping our agents do more transactions, supporting them through our marketing channels. But it's all about driving the business forward and growing is really what my role is.
Checking out your Instagram, you seem to do a lot with family as well. And when we look at, you hear from a lot, look, man, come on, you hear from a lot of people that go, oh, I'm just so busy. I've got so much going on. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. You're running a major organization. How important is it to find that work-life balance, and how do you go about doing that?
Burnout's a real thing.
Yep.
So starting there, I've experienced it. I've seen other people go through it. And I always find it remarkable when you can see somebody who's just exhausted and they don't even realize it. So I'm aware of that. I think I'm a family guy. I love my kids. I love my wife. I love spending time with them. I love doing things with them. And, it's more important to me than business. And, it's frustrating. Like my kids I got a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
Yeah.
And the 4-year-old's pretty good. He's getting easier. The 1.5-year-old's a freaking maniac, destroys everything all the time. And so, it can be frustrating. And, my wife has a very successful small business that is growing. So she's really busy. And, we really support each other. And it's really tough when you're on the road a lot because she's holding down the fort. We got a really good nanny. But, I'll say, like, there's no place I'd rather be is with them.
I agree with you, man.
And so it's just easy. Like I love doing, like I said, I like being with them, and it's important to me. So it's easy.
Are you a big scheduler, like time management?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's how you, okay.
If it's not scheduled, this is happen.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And
I think people get frustrated with me because of it. But it's just, I won't be able to give people the time that they deserve unless I have it blocked in. And so I have to be.
If I schedule something without running it through Leanna, who is my assistant, she says, "Who gave you authority to do that?" Right? Because it's like, it's got to be in the schedule. If it's not in there, it is not going to happen. There's probably not time for it. So looking at that then, how do you know that it's been a successful day for you?
Just that I accomplished what I needed to get done. I wake up at about 4:45 every morning, whether I want to or not. So I really try to get the biggest tasks done right away. And, if I've gotten that out of the way, I've exercised, I've ate right, and, had some meaningful conversations with prospects or, agents, that's a big win for me.
Meaningful conversations and taking care of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still batting 1,000 with that question. Chris, that is one of my favorite questions of the show. We have asked, many successful individuals just like yourself, who do very, very well out there in the world. What is a successful day to you? And there's not a single person that ever uses the word money. So again, much the same. There you go. And there you have it for everybody. It's always about being out there and really self-development, self-fulfillment, but also helping other people. When you said meaningful conversations, I kind of took it that way because I'm sure there's a lot of people in your network that are reaching out to you for guidance, for advice, for direction. And so thank you for that answer. So just as our final question here, I'd ask you, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, my pleasure. So, a lot of times they reach out with anger too. So
well, I'm sure they do. This is where we're going to put the water on the fire, right? Last words or tips that you can share with everybody that's tuned in to either the live show today or the recording that's available everywhere, to help them get out there, really grow their business, build some more mind share, and really just have a lot more success. Just some final words.
I guess. Don't be afraid. Whatever it is you're going to do, don't be afraid to try something new, to spend money on something that you really believe deep down is going to make an impact on your business. Try not to get caught up in the shiny object stuff. I made that mistake time and time again when I started selling. But don't be afraid. Like, put yourself out there. And whatever it is you do, this is probably the most important piece, is be consistent. And don't throw in the towel early. Like if you're farming, it takes 2 years to start to realize a return. If you're generating online leads, you will not start to see, the fruits of the investment in a big way for at least a year, probably. And that's when you'll start to see consistent transactions with that. If you're prospecting, like cold calling or door knocking, it is true. Every no, you're getting closer to a yes. And, so don't be afraid, don't give up, and, be consistent are probably my big three.
Wicked messaging, man. And you are certainly echoing a lot of the things that we share here as well from Mindshare 101. So a great message. And I hope that everybody really takes that one in and just lets it sink in. Chris, thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to connect or maybe just learn more about any of the things we talked about today, or maybe just connect with the Remax Network?
Well, thank you very much for having me, David. I was really excited about this. So I appreciate you having me on the show, and I hope you'll be back. If you want to find me, my email is calexander@remax.ca, and my cell number is 416-786-5552.
A true leader handing out the cell number. I love it, man. It's awesome. And I encourage everybody, connect, get in touch. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I thank you. I do look forward to doing it again. Very grateful that you took the time for myself, for our audience today. You shared some awesome insights. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks, David. I really appreciate it. Take care, everybody, and thanks for watching.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, or Spotify, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content counter to help you build more mindshare so that you get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with my team. We'll set up a free consultation call to learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how I will help you do just that. Also, don't forget that our Push to 100 is on, and you have the chance to win a group coaching membership for 1 year valued at over $500. So be sure to please go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, rate us, and leave a review. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare 101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to once again thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked this out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.